Hi everybody, welcome inside the CrossFit Update Studios. I'm Sean Woodland with Rory McKernan and Tommy Marquez. Kayla Banfield will be here in a little bit with all things social media, but it is week 2 of the 2018 Reebok CrossFit Games Regionals. We have 1 week to draw upon, so we've seen all the events play out for the men, the women, and the teams. How do you think that affects week number 2?
Well, I'm curious to see how much of a difference another week of preparation and practice affects the times of these events, particularly in event 1 with the air salt runner and some of these athletes getting familiar on that thing. And then also in event 3 with the handstand walk obstacle course, will we see times drop dramatically? Because typically these athletes adapt well.
Yeah, and remember, we'll be impressed for different reasons on week number 2. Be prepared to see athletes evolve these workouts like Tommy mentioned, but be even more impressed perhaps by the event 1 records that stand throughout week 2.
I want to thank everybody for joining us here on our live broadcast. We want to get you set for what is going to be coming up here in the next 20 or 30 minutes. We will break down all 3 regionals that will be going this weekend, starting with Latin America. We'll move on to the Central Regional, and then we will finish out West, and we will have the social media highlights from Kayla Banfield from all 3 regionals. First, we want to get you updated on something that is going on in Latin America. Equipment is currently delayed due to a local transportation strike in Brazil, and that strike is affecting various industries throughout the country. Despite local media reports, the event will continue, so there will be a Latin American regional regardless. CrossFit has contingency plans in the event equipment is delayed or withheld. The event will begin Friday at the Olympic Park in Rio de Janeiro. This is a quote from General Manager of the CrossFit Games, Justin Berg. Quote, "Our teams have contingency plans for dealing with many situations, including late or missing equipment. Despite the challenges locally, we're excited to start competition on Friday and crown a fittest man, woman, and team in Latin America." So, if you have a ticket to the Latin American Regional, go. It is going to take place as planned.
Constantly varied.
Yeah, let's take a look at the 3 regionals geographically that we are covering this weekend. We have Latin America. They will send just 1 man, 1 woman, 1 team to the CrossFit Games. We have the West, and then we also have the Central. We will start in the Latin America Regional, where for the first time since 2014, they have their own dedicated regional competition. Why did we bring them back in the fold here in 2018?
Well, there's a couple of reasons, Sean. I was very fortunate to be a part of the team that was researching some of these changes. You looked at Latin America through a couple of lenses, particularly in growth. In the Open, they were second in terms of numbers added in the Open over the last 3 years. They were second in terms of total open participation, that's based on registered athletes. Then you look at affiliates. They were second largest region in terms of affiliates. That's under the old format as well. And then you add in a country like Brazil, that is the second country worldwide to break the 1,000 affiliate barrier besides the United States, and then increased performances at regionals as individuals, sending a team to the games. It was time for them to get a seat at the table.
You know what they didn't tell you actually in your research was that what really pushed it over was the performance of the fans on site, because it's a ridiculous atmosphere. The 3 of us had the pleasure of going down for 18.1 and seeing what Brazil had to offer. So the vibe on site that you get at these South American regionals, and you used to go, and you had a kind of an affinity for those before we moved into the new regional atmosphere. And it's just crazy down there, so it's gonna be fun to watch.
I was blown away with how excited those fans were
so fun.
For 18.1. I can't imagine what it's going to be like for a regional. If you are outside of Latin America, you might not know anything about some of the athletes who are going to be competing this weekend. So let's start with the women's side, where there is a somewhat familiar name there in Brenda Castro, who is looking for her first trip to the CrossFit Games.
Yeah, and she comes in as the favorite, and rightfully so. She's now the 3-time Fittest Woman in Mexico. That's 3 years straight. She was the highest finisher from Latin America as a woman, as an individual last year in the South Regional, finishing 12th. And more importantly, she finished ahead of athletes like Annalisa Marquez and Chloe Wilson, who we saw go in week 1 and have a lot of success under this programming. So I think it's very possible that she could be the front runner.
Me encanta Brendito Castro. However, I gotta say, she's not gonna walk away with the competition. In particular, I was really, really impressed with Anita Pravacci when we went down again for 18.1. She stepped up, she's been competing since 2012, and I love that she's kind of an indication of the evolution of the sport down there. In 2012, she couldn't complete the minimum work requirement, 21 handstand push-ups in Diane, and now she's in the top 147 in the world.
So we have some names to watch on the women's side. The men's side, though, pretty much wide open. Is there even a favorite in that division?
We're going to be missing one of the top teams, but one of their members is going to be my top pick for the men. And I think that Ivan Gaitan's going to make a huge impact. In particular, he's got a background in gymnastics, and I think that plays well for him in event number 3. This was a legitimate team. They finished 18th at the CrossFit Games, and again, that tells you a lot about him as an athlete in particular. There's a lot of question marks. I don't know how he's going to do in event number 1 and 2, for example, but going to be great. I can't wait to see him at the Games.
I agree. The experience is definitely going to help him, but another athlete as well that has some Games experience, Luis Oscar Mora. He's out of Mexico. He was at the Games as a teenager 2 years ago where he finished 4th. And you look at the teenagers he was behind, Angelo DeChico from Mayhem, George Sterner, who's a beast out in the North Central, and Nicholas Palladino, the 2-time champ. So he was certainly with some elite company there. Last year didn't qualify for regionals, came back this year, finished 2nd in Mexico. I mean, the kid is an animal, and I think he has a bright future in the sport.
You mentioned the Big Friends team that made it to the CrossFit Games last year. They're not in the regional again this year to make a return trip. What does that do now to the team field?
I think it blows the doors open. Really, it's anyone's game to take, because you look at the Big Friends team, they weren't just the top team to qualify for the CrossFit Games from Latin America. They're the only team that was within earshot. They finished 3rd at the South Regional, and the next team down was Moema from Brazil that was in 21st. So really, you separate a team that was really the class of the region, did great at the Games, taking 18th, and now there's a ton of opportunity for maybe some countries or some affiliates that didn't think they had a shot before to now maybe seize a spot at the Games.
Which would be fantastic. You mentioned different countries, and this is the way that the sport evolves, is by these countries going to the CrossFit Games, seeing what it actually takes, coming back, and rising tide raises all ships. So hopefully we'll see some people filling that gap, as you mentioned. That will make all of Latin America better.
Let's send it over to Kayla Banfield, who has been keeping an eye on all things social media to be coming out of the Latin American Regional. Kayla?
Thank you, Sean. And guys, if you've seen me at this desk before, you may have noticed some of the awesome stuff behind me on either side. All of this and more can be found at stuff.crossfit.com. If you have a look in this book here, you might even find a cheeky photo of yours truly. Now, speaking of photos, I've been asking for your photos all weekend, but this time we are going to be giving a reward. So we're going to be giving away a prize for the best meme this weekend, and the prize is going to be a skateboard from the store. The winner will be drawn on Sunday, and all you need to do is upload your photo and use the hashtag #UpdateShow. Moving on to our social media, lots of excitement coming from Latin America, and an athlete I wanted to shine the spotlight on is Leah Carolina Schmidt. She's got a photo here of a throwback to her first regional in 2015. Since then, her training is more specialized, nutrition is on point, and the biggest change has been mindset. Now, in this next photo, you'll also see that she's had a hair change, so she's gone blonde, and I love that look on her. Leah also says event 5 is her favorite. Last weekend, Leah went through a mock run-through of regionals before the big game this weekend, and a picture from 2 days ago, Here I Come Latin America Regionals. And I also included a funny meme that I found on the internet just to give you an example of what we're after. So just to reiterate, we are looking for your memes this weekend. If you're particularly funny, use this opportunity to win a skateboard. Upload your photo and use the hashtag #UpdateShow. Thanks, Sean.